Well, Carrie, I think I like that one the best of all of the all of the
Oh,
countdown timers that we've had.
yeah, I
What do
think
you think?
I like that one. It's not, it's kind of like choosing your ringtone or your so after you get
Right.
burned out on all your ringtones, then you go to your like you set your clock to go
You s-
off, and some of them just put you in a bad mood. So you got to make sure they're night. That was one that doesn't
It's
trigger
it's got
anything.
yeah, it's got a soothing feel to it, but it
Yeah.
doesn't alarm you like some of the other ones that we've tried over the past week.
Yes, some of them are quite alarming, no pun
Yeah.
intended. Yeah, I think we'll use that one unless we get
Yeah.
another new update that's
Right. So we welcome to another Workshop Wednesday. I'm Dan DeLong, and I'm here with.
Carrie Con, and we are in uniform, School of
That's
Bookkeeping.
right. Yes, we do have the coveted
Yes,
schoolofbookkeeping.com shirts that nobody else can get.
we only have 10 of these. I think I have 5, you have 5, unless some
Right.
have blown up, so we have
Yeah.
one for every day of the week.
That's so yeah. It's we're not just wearing the same shirt every day. It's we actually have different shirts for different days. We have our Monday shirt, our Tuesday.
It's fun.
uh, so we are continuing our series in payroll fundamentals and QuickBooks workflows. We're splitting up the workshop into two parts. And normally we have our friends at ADP joining us today, but we're flying solo. We're the dynamic duo instead of the terrific trio
That's
of
okay.
the.
I know payroll. I can handle
Right,
it. I'll make them
right,
proud.
right, exactly. But today's topic on payroll is all talking about paying your taxes. Your payroll taxes that you need to do as an employer.
Yes.
When you take on employees, you got to pay the tax man. So we'll talk a little bit about that, and then we'll talk about some of the QuickBooks news because that always seems to bubble up each time
Day
when we think.
before our calls, it sort of derails what we were planning to talk about, but that's okay. We can adjust and pivot like on Seinfeld.
Like you're supposed
Pivot
to.
like you're
Right.
supposed to.
All right. So let's talk about the payroll topic. So we had we had a previous workshop about the importance of payroll dates, and the most important date on a payroll paycheck is the paycheck date itself, not the pay period date. And
Doesn't
then
matter.
the most important date on a pay liability check is the paid through date, not the date of the check. So they're kind of backwards when it comes to what the dates are, and this all boils down to the accounting of payroll. So Carrie's going to give us her CPA advice.
That's scary. Oh, yeah, but
What
back
is
to
it? So
liabilities.
let's claim it. Let's frame it a little bit with
Okay, I
what a
like it.
when we talk about payroll taxes. Uh, it boils down to some things are expenses and some things are liabilities. So let's talk a little bit about the difference between an expense and a liability. So
Yeah,
and go.
and go. So a liability is when you have your paycheck, and my kids would scream about these things. Why did they take money out of my account? So it's those things that are coming out of your account for your state tax withholding and your federal tax withholding that are literally sitting in some little fund somewhere in Never Never Land. When you go to file your taxes, those monies come bubbling back, that withholding number, and you either paid in enough or you didn't. That's a liability. Expense is something that you have to pay. An employee has to pay a part of it. They get to pay some of the Social Security, but so does your employer. So there's the 7.65 FICA, Social Security plus Medicare that nobody likes to have to pay. But one day when you retire, hopefully you get something for that money that the government's enjoying. We won't go into that kind of nonsense. But it's 7.65 of your pay disappears and vanishes. It's your expense, or 7.65 is the company expense. So all these monies are all calculated within your software solution that you've chosen, which we've talked about that. And on certain times, this conglomeration of money is not the company's to spend. It needs to be allocated to the proper people.
So in accounting terms, um,
Yeah.
the liability is something that you owe, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's always the way that I had, you know, when I was learning about the accounting equation, assets equals liabilities plus equity. The word that I associated with assets is this is stuff that I have, right?
Yeah.
This is the value of things that I have, like I have a house, right? But some of that is broken down into what I still owe on the house, and
Yeah.
then the with the final
Differences.
result being what do I own
That's
of the
your
house,
equity.
right? So we have
So
owe versus own, it equals have, right?
when they write the
So
paycheck, part of the money that's with those withholdings and all that nonsense sits in that liability account until you pay it.
right. So when we talk about a paycheck, and some of that, um, some of those are going to be expenses, and some of those are going to be liabilities, and sometimes the same thing is an expense and a liability, which makes it even more
So
challenging when you look at a breakdown of a paycheck. And a lot of our friends, may come to us at school bookkeeping and say, I don't understand how to make this journal entry because of those types of things,
right.
combining the journal, or combining the in this case the FICA portion for the company is an expense and a liability at the same time.
And
As a
I didn't even
Sorry.
mention the unemployment tax, which which is a company expense, and it's about 2 or
Mhm.
3%. So,
Yeah. So to account for all of those things, um,
gotta
the there's and some of those things are going to be done on different schedules, right? So,
yes.
um, for the big five. So when you hear this term of in payroll, the big five, what are they referring to? Carrie, did I throw you off by saying what?
What the heck is the big 5? Federal, state,
Yep. No, no.
FICA, Medicare, unemployment?
The 941 tax,
Oh,
right?
okay. All right. Got it. All right.
In terms of,
So,
yeah, I should have framed it a little better
give me
for
a
you.
little more clue. So, every
Threw me a
quarter
bone here.
throw me a bone. So, you basically run your paychecks all happy, everything's nice throughout the quarter. And depending on when you are to pay, what we're talking about, pay in your liabilities and holdings and whatnot, those items get done throughout that quarter based on your company. If you're real small, not a lot going on, you could wait till the end of the quarter. If you are heavy payroll people, you pay as you go, and somewhere
Right.
in between you could pay monthly. So the 941 is a reconciliation that you've done all these fun things. So when
And
we have
those five is the federal withholding, the Social Security employee, the Social Security employer, the Medicare employee, and then the Medicare employer. So that's what we were referring to as those big five, because they all go to the same agency, which in this case is the
IRS, and
IRS. Yeah.
that's the 941 is the form that they will ask you for all the balancing numbers to make sure you did it right. And
Right.
that's where they can figure out if you screwed up and owe them penalties and interest and all that fun stuff.
So when it comes down to, so the factor of how frequently you have to pay that, because the form itself is every quarter. So
Yeah,
uh, first
you're
quarter is the first 3 months, second quarter, second 3 months. I'm getting myself confused, but it goes by calendar quarter, and then they're
calendar quarter.
due. The form itself is the 20th, or the end of the month, right? Is at the end of the
The
following month after the quarter
the
that it's
form it's
due.
yeah. So the form itself, let's just talk quarter one. Quarter
Yeah,
one ends March 31st. The form itself would be due April 30th. The
30th.
taxes, on the other hand, are either due, if you're real low paying, and I don't know what the threshold is, if you just have
Yeah,
one small check a quarter, you just pay in with that form. Most
Right.
people blow through the limits and have to do it sooner.
So there's gonna be some kind of threshold that will tell, and that's gonna be, the threshold that will be crossed on some 941 that you've that you've submitted, of how frequently you have to pay those liabilities of those five
And it
taxes,
and if you're
and how
not
frequently you
lucky,
need to do that.
so if you can't do them with your 941 because you're a little bit bigger than that, I'm going backwards, and in between, you would be you'd be figuring up your taxes once a month. So, for example, January's withholdings and expenses would be paid February 15th. And you do that each month, and you're going to show that on your 941. If you're really heavy in payroll, you're going to be doing it within a few days. And
Right.
then
So as soon
you'll
as
have
as
to
soon as
show.
you record the paychecks, then you go right in and you pay your taxes.
And it's
Now, is
actually best,
go
I
ahead.
think it's best habits to do it that way, because you
Yeah.
don't want to sit on that money.
So it's not a requirement for somebody who needs to pay quarterly to pay right after the payrolls run. But as you're I think you're alluding to, it's actually a best practice. Once you run the payroll, just go ahead and pay your taxes.
Yes. Yeah, I think so. Now, when you do full service payroll, it just depends on the company. But
Mhm.
generally, full service payroll will go ahead and debit out what's needed to run your payroll. And that includes the
Yeah.
taxes. And then you're done, and you know what's left behind is money you can use for bills and so forth.
Because just because you have that money in your bank account doesn't mean it's not owed to someone. In this case, it would be owed to the IRS, and you don't want to not pay the
Mhm.
IRS, because then they have these tax notices, and
They can
they
they
can
can lock your
they can do
doors.
all sorts of stuff that you may not want them to do.
You don't
So
wanna
it's a good
test
idea.
payroll taxes. No, no, no. You wanna
So
make
you
sure.
may so you may be a required to pay monthly, uh, based on your thresholds for the 941. But it may not be a bad idea, to just do it every paycheck if you're. It doesn't hurt, right? You can
No,
pay ahead of time, because they're not going to do anything about
you
it until the
you
941 gets filed, right?
right. So, yeah, backwards. So, you're letting them use your money tax free. Some people will go crazy over that, and I agree with that too. If you're disciplined, then pay it in as needed. But if you do the other way, where you don't pay it on time, the penalties and interest are painful, and they can, put locks on your doors and stuff like that. So you definitely want to be on their good side. You don't get
Hmm.
any brownie points for paying early, but
Right.
you can sleep better at night.
It's kind of like the price of gas. You always blame whoever's in the White House for the high price of gas, but you never give them credit when it goes down, right?
That's right. That's right, and you don't get anything, and in this case, you don't get interest back, but boy, do you pay interest and penalties if you're late. So it's like, "Can't you pay me something for doing it early?" So
So
that's
it's
that's one of them. There's more though, Dan.
Yeah, so right, so we're talking about, the payroll schedule of making of paying those taxes. So, as you're writing paychecks, that's the payroll cycle of, routine, paychecks, increasing the liabilities, and then I pay my taxes, and then that zeroes it back down to zero for that particular run of paychecks. Um,
Right.
that's going to be on a schedule, right? And you're typically going to go into the payroll, service that you use, whatever that happens to be, whether it's QuickBooks or ADP or someone else, right? You're going to tell them how frequently you owe those taxes based off of those thresholds. So,
Yes,
um, and then
and
it's
I
going to then associate the schedule of making those payments on the schedule that you tell it to do. So if you're a quarterly or a monthly or a every payroll, individual for just the 941, we're not talking about any other scheduled payroll. It's going to have, that schedule associated with those liabilities. So
right.
you just need to know what your schedule should be, and then tell the service, whatever that happens to be, what that would be. Because, as a supporting QuickBooks payroll for as long as I had, that was a big challenge for some people, they would see their dates, were misaligned, because taking it back to the importance of the payroll dates, their paycheck dates and their pay liabilities dates were misaligned. They didn't coincide with the schedule of that particular payroll, and they would call, and it was almost like clockwork, right? It's like, I already paid this. Why is it showing that it's still due, right? And that's where those three things are going to come in alignment. The date of the paycheck, the date of the payroll liability check, and the schedule that ties them all together, so that whatever you're using for payroll to alert you when you haven't paid knows about that. So then it was really just a date issue when it came to mirroring those three things together. But
Right.
you were going to say something, I just steamrolled right
No,
over
I
you.
was just saying a common thing that you probably got at the help desk was around, like you said, they already paid it. Well, they probably wrote a check instead of running
Yeah,
it through the proper channels in QuickBooks to pay it as a liability. QuickBooks tried really hard to make it easy, but if you don't understand payroll, you're just going to make a mess of it, which
yeah.
is
Those
why.
those were typically the usual suspects when it came to that. I've already paid this. Well, how did you pay it? Oh, I wrote a check. Oh, well,
Let's
that's not the
record it
kind of check that
properly. Yeah,
QuickBooks wants to see, right?
right.
Because that paid through date that we had talked about that's so important is not even referenced anywhere on a regular check. Right? You need a special check in order to do that.
Right.
So have we? Oh, we haven't talked about other, right? So these
Beyond
schedules,
911.
these schedules exist for every payroll liability that you have. So not just payroll taxes, but we can kind of list out some of these. So the federal unemployment, the state unemployment.
You skipped one. Let's
Um,
go back because this is
oh,
how it is in my brain. So you have
okay,
941, which is your federal withholding, and FICA, Medicare, both sides. 5.
the
And
big five.
then the next one is, what always is after the federal is your state withholding. That's how much you're
Mm.
withholding to cover your state income tax. And then after that is, I do the SUTA next. I stay in the state land because the state unemployment is due quarterly. And that's usually you hit a threshold, and you don't have to pay your entire wages on that. It's like the first, say, 20,000, 15 to 20,000, depends on your state. And after a while, that'll dwindle so that you're not really paying a lot in. And then federal unemployment, which is your 940, and that's something you look at quarterly, but you reconcile at the end of the year. So if it's over $100, you need to pay that in, so you don't have to pay any penalties. And those are the things that are going to be accruing if they're set up properly in your QuickBooks, or in whatever program you're using. They're going to be accruing and then paid out as needed, um, based on those schedules if they're set up right. If they're not set up right, you got a mess.
And then you've got other liabilities that might
Yes.
be deducted, or company contribution. So your benefits of health
Health.
benefits and those
Health.
types of things, as well
Mhm.
as any 401k or retirement plans that you're going to need to pay those into. You're going to typically
Child
associate.
support and stuff like
Yep,
that.
you're typically going to tell whatever payroll system you're using how frequently those things get paid out. And depending on what service you're using, they'll be able to either remind you that they're due, or they're going to be able to make those payments and remittances automatically for you. So those are things to look at when you have those types of situations in your payroll. Is how are those payments made, right? So if they need to be paid by someone, who's going to do that? Who's responsible for doing that? Is it me as the employer? Is that something I want to do, or is it maybe something that I just want to? Here you go. Give this to someone else to
Yes.
handle, because especially when you're dealing with tax, payroll taxes, there's if you don't, then there's typically a payment penalty and interest for not making those payments on a timely fashion.
And the reason for doing it basically inside of QuickBooks, especially, I mean, it's nice to have it inside your software if you can, but you don't have to. You'll have to then deal with journal entries. But if customers need to be tracking some job costing and that sort of thing, it's really a good idea. It's done better in the desktop, and then you would want to use. I would recommend the assisted, but some people are fine using the enhanced. So those are ways that you're not having to basically do double, you make it more integrated for you. Those are the ways to go.
So those are the importance of dates and the payroll schedule of those tax payments and other liabilities. So now we can kind of move on to our
Whoosh.
to our QuickBooks news. Where's our like newsreel music?
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, I'm gonna share my screen here. So we've created a new blog article on schoolofbookkeeping.com, just like the news, breaking news, right? So for things that are happening in the month of July, of course, the big news there is that QuickBooks Connect is coming back, right? So after a 2-year hiatus of being virtual, QuickBooks Connect is coming in December in Las Vegas. I was just in Las Vegas. Would not recommend Las Vegas.
I told you so.
Well, I
But
just had
we're going back in
had
December, so
a poor traveling experience with the airlines. I mean, I don't know if you've done any flight travel lately, but
so yeah.
it's the new toilet paper of of our time. I mean, when you go to when you at the beginning of the pandemic, right? When you tried to go get toilet paper and it wasn't there. I mean, that's the cycle of things that are just now happening that that companies are trying to get caught back up on, right? Because what happened was they let a whole lot of people go when no one was going anywhere, and now they're trying to play catch up, right? I had an experience where we did not have pilots. We sat in the airplane with an empty cockpit for an hour.
Right.
And then finally they said that, well, they're not coming. And so they canceled the flight on the way out. And then they canceled the flight on the way back. So we're driving to Vegas this time.
What my trick is, and not that it's gonna always work, is I fly in the morning, and I don't care
Yeah.
how painful it is, we just get it done. So
Yeah, that's a good best practice. If you can get up in the morning, get that first flight, because typically those aren't delayed because they're already sitting at the gate.
they're already there ready to go, and then after that, it starts tumbling down bad.
Yeah.
So we experimented we had a couple flights, one in May, one in June, and we experimented with this philosophy, and early works.
So we just went to Scaling New Heights recently, and QuickBooks Connect, and those are typically your two conferences of choice, right, Carrie?
Yeah, we used to have Accountex, and that they just shut it down. So they just it just
Fizzled out.
disappeared, fizzled out. It used to be Sleater. Sleater sold it to Accountex, and then we used to go to that, but that one's gone. So we narrowed it down to these two conferences while they're still back. That's where our focus is.
What do you like about QuickBooks Connect versus Scaling New Heights when you do go to these two conferences?
They're totally different. QuickBooks Connect it's got the entire Intuit staff there. They usually have a lot of splashy headliners and stars and stuff, so that's exciting. It's generally the same audience that we have at Scaling New Heights and some of the same teachers, so that part's similar, but I guess, difference, it's usually West Coast, East Coast. Those headliners are but that's not really what makes the headliners are fun for sure.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, like this year, Serena Williams, and
I think
then
she's come before.
has she? Or
I
was it
think so.
Venus? I don't know. I get the Williams sisters confused
And
sometimes.
I think Malcolm's been there before. I don't know. We'll
Oh,
have to look.
have to look
I
at the
mean, we've
history.
met Oprah and
Mhm. Alex
oh,
Rodriguez one year, and
yes.
Ashton Kutcher was
Oh,
another
that was the
year.
best. That was good. And then Martha Stewart, who
Ah,
dropped the old F bomb on stage, so that made us real laugh. Um, Huffington, what's her name?
oh,
Ariana Huffington.
Adriana, Ariana.
She was the first year. She was phenomenal. I really, really, really liked her. Um, yeah. So we've met a lot of really neat people. Of course, we
Yeah.
had Brad Smith in his last. It was sad when he retired. So we got to see him every year. That was always fun because he get the whole audience excited. Really miss him bad. But QB Connect, different from Scaling New Heights, is QB Connect is pretty heavy QuickBooks Online. Sometimes they sprinkle in some desktop. They might be hidden in the corner. It's a little strange there. All the same vendors are there, but they keep usually enterprise and point of sale kind of off in the corner, like the redheaded stepchild, where QuickBooks or Scaling New Heights includes all of them, from even Zero, Sage, Accounting Suite. I've learned some new ones this year, along with Desktop Enterprise and all that. So they include everyone. Where QuickBooks Connect is very heavy QBO, as though there's only QBO, but they say that's not true. So there's that.
But I did put the blog in the comments of the workshop today, so you should be able to get to this blog if you need to. Some other things we want to talk about. So there's a new function or feature in QuickBooks Payments. Okay, Carrie and I love QuickBooks Payments,
Yes.
but one of the reasons that we like it is how integrated it is. Like, so once you send someone an invoice out of your QuickBooks and they pay it, you're done, right? Like,
Yes.
so the payment gets recorded automatically, the deposit gets recorded automatically. The one thing that doesn't happen automatically, but now does, is that it automatically reconciles that deposit in your checkbook, right? So now it
Andy.
can they can track when it actually is deposited, and then that information then comes back into your QuickBooks, and then it marks it as reconciled for you, so you don't even have to reconcile your
Wow.
bank account. So that's something that's new in QuickBooks Payments. So obviously you don't have to pay for anything new; you just have to use it, right? So if
Right.
you're not using QuickBooks Payments, this is a nice feature, and this is something that no other payment provider is going to be able to offer within your QuickBooks, because you're doing your billing and your bookkeeping at the same time. One of them will handle the billing side, but not necessarily the bookkeeping. Maybe they integrate, maybe they don't, maybe they track their fees, maybe they don't. But QuickBooks Payments, once you've done sent the payment off, you are done, right? Because everything else will then just happen automatically for you, with the exception of desktop. Desktop gives you, a record the payments, right? So you do have to have a manual process of doing that, but which will automatically synchronize and match to the customer and allocate the fees. But you have to take that manual step to get there. But you can't do that with any other payment processor. So now you have the automatic matching option, as well as the reconciliation of said deposit. So um, big feature. I mean, it's a little feature, but it's a big time saver.
That's awesome. And keep in mind too that QuickBooks will give you a merchant account no matter what. And if you want
Yeah,
a discount, be sure to apply outside of the product and try to get
yeah,
a discount.
yeah. So what Carrie's trying to say there is that
Very subtly. Don't
is quick.
sign up in product.
Well, QuickBooks is a very good marketing team, and they make it seem like it's just a normal setup step, but in reality, you're actually setting up a payments account. And when you do so, you're giving all the fees to Intuit. There may be reasons to get a discount, or maybe options to get a discount that you don't know of. But
So you
because
get full
the way
price
they've set
to
up
do it that way.
they've set up the entire setup interview just as like, well, click here, do this, get you started, and you don't even realize that you had set up a payments account through all that process. So um, if you're not working with an accounting professional, please find one, and they can they can get you maybe a discount by going through that.
Yes.
One other thing we want to talk about on the blog here is that QuickBooks Online Advanced, one of those, one of the features, I don't know, features or, I don't know what the marketing calls it these days, but they premium apps, right? So that's one of the things that you get as when you purchase QuickBooks Advanced, Online Advanced, is the privilege of connecting with what they call premium apps. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't connect these apps to QuickBooks Online Plus or Simple Start
Well, but
or
they probably have to
Essentials.
pay a fee.
You typically will pay more for these connections than you would if you did them through QuickBooks Online Advanced. So that kind of increases the value of QuickBooks Online Advanced when you look at, well, why would I pay $200 a month versus $85 for Plus? Well, you may, if you're integrating with some of these premium apps, it might be, you got to look at the total cost of your tech stack. It may be actually less if you went through Advanced and use one of these premium apps or multiple premium apps. But a premium app is an app that just has a special relationship within QuickBooks. So there's a Salesforce connector that's lower than it would be if you had done it outside of QuickBooks. Bill.com has a relationship. Lean Law has a relationship. DocuSign. So these are in the realm of premium apps. And now Notify, which everything is a fi these days. You've got Shopify, Spotify. Now, no, everything is ified. And Notify, because now you got to ify your knowledge. But Notify is a contractor app, right? So if you're doing contracting and change orders and all of those things that QuickBooks Online doesn't do, Notify is kind of like the go-to app for that for people in the QuickBooks Online space who are contractors. So now Notify has a connection app that is now integrated, and well, it's always was integrated, but now it's in the premium apps connection. So if you are working with a contractor, or if you are a contractor and you're looking to go to QuickBooks Online, and you're looking at Notify, it might make better sense to go to QuickBooks Online Advanced, because now there is a premium app connection to QuickBooks Online Advanced. Whew, okay. That makes sense.
Right.
Did I say that well enough?
As those subscriptions aren't confusing enough, you have to pay for your QBO Advanced account. You have to pay for your Notify account. And what they're saying is there won't be an additional third fee to handhold the two together, which is something that they're going to have for probably the lower subscriptions or other subscriptions. So just like you say, get all your spreadsheets ready to go so you know what the total cost is of your tech stack.
This is, as it's saying here, it's an exclusive feature. The Notify connector allows to sync construction projects invoices between Notify and QuickBooks Online Advanced. So it doesn't actually, it looks like the connector is free.
No
right?
additional cost for this particular.
Your Notify and your Online Advanced is not, right? So obviously you don't
Yep.
get, but you can use the Notify connector to do the to integrate the two. If you're doing this outside through Notify, you may have to charge, or they may have to charge you for the bridge between the two.
Yeah.
So
who would have thought there were bridges between these things? There are, so keep that in mind. You would think it's just one thing, but
All
They
right.
got to make their
So
money.
that's good enough for today.
I think so.
You
Thank
can
you,
always
Eric.
check out the blog on the on schoolofbookkeeping.com. And if you have questions about QuickBooks Online Advanced, we have a course on that. We have a course on payments. It's all in there. Just check out the blog and post comments or anything on
Yeah.
schoolofbookkeeping.com.
And let us
So we
know if
will,
you're planning to go to QuickBooks Connect,
yeah,
because we
maybe
are.
we'll see you there.
If we
All right,
can
we'll see
get
you
there,
next
we'll
week.
have to try. See you next
Yeah,
week.
see you next week on Workshop Wednesday, and have a great one.